Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. We're so happy that you could join us. My name is Crystal, and I am the marketing manager for itracks, and I have the absolute pleasure of introducing you to our speakers for today. Before I do that, I do want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. Number one being that this is actually the first in a three-part webinar series. So if you like what you see here today, please note that we'll be having another webinar on November 10th. They will be similar to today's, but focused more on the healthcare industry, whereas today's is focused on the financial industry and topics that their customers are facing and how to get feedback in there. And then on November 17th, we will be doing a third webinar, and this will be for people who attended either today's and or the one on the 10th. They want to find out how to dig deeper and how to really collect those insights. So the one on November 17th will be going more into the methodologies and how to actually carry out that qualitative research. The second housekeeping item is that our speakers today will actually be sticking around afterwards. So if you have any questions, please type them into that questions field in your little GoToWebinar dashboard. And Dan Weber, CEO for itracks, Kathy Fitzpatrick, VP of Client Development for itracks, and Christine Keller, Program Manager for the Client Lab at MassMutual, will all be joining us to answer those questions. And they'll actually be joined by Garnett Weber, the other co-founder of itracks, is going to be fielding and kind of moderating those questions. So please type the questions throughout the webinar so that we can help you get all those answered at the end there. And then the third thing that I want to bring your attention to is that throughout Dan's portion of the presentation, you may notice screen caps from a platform that you maybe aren't familiar with yet. And that's because we have some really, really exciting things going on at itracks right now. So I won't say much more about that other than keep your eyes and ears open for some exciting announcements and bits of information coming your way soon with regards to that new platform. The way today's webinar is going to work, we're going to have Dan Weber, CEO and co-founder of itracks, run through a little bit of the kind of a high-level overview of collecting insights in the financial industry right now and kind of some of the issues that they're facing and different ways of collecting that information. And then for Kathy and Christine's portion, they are going to be sharing a really, really fascinating project that they worked on actually for the better part of about 2 years. That was really, really, really successful and that we hope you find as interesting and as fascinating as we do. So with that, I am going to pass the reins over to Dan.
Well, thank you, Crystal, and thank you everyone for joining us today. As Crystal pointed out, I'm the CEO of itracks. We started the company about 24 years ago, and we are in sunny Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. We're an independent market research software firm. Some might consider a leader in the qualitative space. And we were known for the development of the first online focus group in 1999. We have done some extensive work in the banking and finance industry, including some of the clients that you see there below. Throughout my time in doing presentations, I've had the opportunity to meet many different people from around the world. It's very surprising how many people are connected to Saskatoon or Saskatchewan in some way or fashion. So I invite you, if you're from outside of Saskatoon or Saskatchewan, if you have any connection to Saskatoon, whether that you have a remote uncle that lived here or if you drove as fast as you can through the city in your cross-Canada trip, please type it into our presentation area and collecting some of that information. It's always an interesting endeavor. I wanted to start with giving you some perspective. This is 6 months ago. We all know that what happened and shutdowns and everything as it relates to COVID. And one where many people used to bank in person and at a facility have been forced to move online. And I will give the finance industry credit. They have always been a leader in kind of pushing the envelope in terms of moving people into this environment. But certainly when COVID hit 6 months ago, they entered a whole different phase of managing and dealing with clients. And so we'd like to speak a little bit about that today, how the finance industry is being affected by COVID and how they might garner some answers from from their clients during this period. So in hearing and listening to some of my clients, here's an example of some of the questions that are just coming up. How are people who traditionally banked in person managing banking online? We know that there's an awful lot of people that still go to those places, and in some cases it's opening up now, but even then their experiences are different once they come to the banks. How are you gaining an understanding of seniors' perspectives? Those that are moving online that haven't, are they able to manage online or in an app? What are financing needs of people moving outside of the city? There's these phases and trends that are happening as a result of COVID that are changing probably people's banking needs. There's many businesses that are affected. The whole business sector of financing and banking has changed. And then, what gaps or products are missing now that the people are doing in-person services. Our industry has had to change as well. This is our perspective, one where you may have been looking for trends and you're looking for those questions. Why are people doing this? Well, in the past, you've brought people together. You, as the client, have positioned yourself in a back room with a nice glass of wine in a comfortable chair and watch your clients give you answers to those questions. Well, 6 months ago, when the majority, if not all, of the focus group facilities shut down, obviously there was a great demand to continue to find those answers, and sometimes even more so. And that's where itracks kicked in. And certainly we have seen a change in the need for online research in that capacity. So to people that haven't gone online or are exploring it, there's certainly some questions on why should I be going online? Well, in today's environment, it's considered safe. Of course, people are working from their home or their office, and it's quite convenient. There's no travel involved for the participants or you as a client or the research as well. So certainly that is one positive. There's some flexible methodologies. We'll talk a little bit more about those later in terms of what you use and how you use it, but you have some choices. It represents a natural environment. This one's I'm a really strong believer in. If the majority of a person's banking is now being done in a makeshift office in the middle of their living room with 2 kids and a cat, that's where they're consuming your product. And that's actually where we want to be doing our research, in that natural environment. Topics like finance can also be sensitive, especially when we're talking about 401ks or registered retirement plans here in Canada, or even bankruptcies, things like that. They're tough to talk about, and having anonymity in some of these environments I think, gives people a comfort level to open up and really speak about their experience. There are some advanced reporting and new outputs in terms of analyzing data that we can apply using these techniques. And then one where I think we're moving a little bit away from what I call recall, where we say, we know you experienced something a couple of weeks ago, can you tell us about it? Whereas now we're actually capturing people in that environment. We're either having them bring a mobile device to the bank and saying, what is it like now in this new COVID era? How are people social distancing? How are people using masks? Giving them that real perspective. Or, as I said before, I've just finished a banking engagement. I can ask that person, would you like to talk to you about your last engagement online and what was involved, and really capturing them right in that moment. We can use that mobile piece that I talked about, and then it seems to be a little bit faster, more convenient, and often a little bit more cost effective. You're cutting out things like travel. You can get to the people you want. You may be able to reach a wider, more finite audience. Maybe there's people that only meet certain criteria, in 1 or 2 in certain cities, but of course you can now collect them all and put them into one place from across the country and the continent. So for today's objectives, we wanted to go over a few things. We want to explore the use of virtual qualitative and its challenges, in particular in the financial industry. I'm very pleased to have Mass Mutual and talk to you about a case study that we have completed with Mass Mutual. And then we're going to discuss some of your options when you're choosing to go online, and we can speak to those as well. So with that, I have the extreme pleasure of introducing you to Christine Keller, Project Manager with Mass Mutual Client Labs, and Kathy Fitzpatrick, VP of Client Development here at itracks. Christine has been a real advocate and a pusher in terms of advancing online qualitative. She's been a wonderful colleague to work with. She's going to tell you about her story using our tools and going online. And we're going to have Kathy compliment and talk about how they develop their program to meet Mass Mutual's needs. With that, I'd like to pass it on to Christine and Kathy.
Thanks, Dan. We appreciate the opportunity to share this incredibly fun project with everyone that's viewing today. I'd like to take another quick second to introduce Christine Keller. She is on the Client Lab team and will be joining us today to really kind of walk through this program and the success that it has been internally for the Client Lab team as well as for itracks. So what we'd like to do today is share the journey with you. How did Reality Voice come about? What was the impact for the client team? And how can you and your teams emulate something similar? So with all that being said, we're going to, as the slide says, tune into the new reality of consumers. So I'd like for you all to meet Christine Keller.
Hi, thanks, Kathy. So just to kind of get us started about what our overall goals were for Client Lab, what our needs were, is that we wanted to understand plan participant struggles on the path to financial wellness. Obviously, this is very important because there are different paths, there are different pieces for each of our participants. Next, we wanted to understand the plan participants' reaction to proposed regulations and changes, especially this year, with all the changes that have gone on and made. We want to know their thoughts of their current thoughts and current reactions in real time. We wanted to gain knowledge to aid benefit solution and the prioritization of them. So we know that we always have a menu of services, and we wanted to be able to give some directional guidance for that. And we wanted to help, our clients guide their strategy and investment decisions and to know what their participants want and their needs are. So we wanted to provide some understanding there, which led us to why Reality Voice. So Reality Voice is Client Lab's sales service tool and capability. What we wanted to do is to help advisors grow their business and deepen relationships with key stakeholders. So we wanted something that would help them see the potential impact of their decisions ahead of time with a close to real-time feedback loop. So in this way, we took Reality Voice and made it the Reality TV for retirement.
Thanks, Christine, for the overview. The actual program itself really preceded the rollout by creating this wonderful partnership between Client Lab and itracks. As they were developing what they needed and pairing it with the vendor partner who could supply extraordinary results, a couple of things were considered. The platform needed to have a strong video data capture capability, so enabling participants to connect with the project and submit video as their responses moving forward. There was definitely something to be said for recruiting the right participants. So bringing the correct people into the project that became more than just a participant or a respondent. Actually, we are now at a point with this program that the participants are viewed as part of the team. Not only do we view them that way, but they view themselves that way. They always feel like their contributions are being heard and that they're being acted upon and that they're resonating within the client team. As we developed the program, we also needed to pay close attention with Client Lab to create a custom mobile app. So it wasn't just taking the itracks app and flipping it into the use for this program. There really had to be some custom design work. And so the partner that Client Lab chose to work with needed to have that capability. And the platform needed to be accessed in very specific ways by the Client Lab internal teams. So rather than getting into a lot of those details, when we look at these 4 major bullet points, it was really a no-brainer for Client Lab and itracks to partner on this project. The next thing I'd like to talk to you about is a bit about methodology. Let's take a step back and look at the overall program itself. Christine has really laid out in very good way the actual need that the client had for good results and to help them with their business objectives. It needed to be an online platform. As I mentioned one slide before, it needed to be video driven. There was a real desire for that connection between the participant and the moderator, if you will, or the question that was being posted for the day. We needed to make sure that there was a diversified participant base, that participants were recruited not based to the company that they used, but really more within the industry, people who had retirement plans. We engaged the participants weekly. So if you can imagine, we have had somewhere between 32 and 36 people participating for well over a year now. I think we're almost at our 2-year anniversary. So there has been little to no drop off, which speaks to the way these participants were recruited, that they were given opportunity to share and made sure that their input was properly responded to and included as the program rolled on. Be that as it may, there was a longitudinal commitment that the participants made at the beginning of the project. So every respondent agreed that they would participate in a long-term study. They do receive incentives for that participation. And initially, we got over the hump of getting the participants their paycheck, if you will, for their participation, generating the video responses that were needed. But what ended up happening, ironically and beautifully, was that the participants became extraordinarily energized and enthused about their ability to communicate and share what their experiences were with the question of the week. So it's been a fun ride for everybody, not just our business sense of us, but for the participants as well. One other thing that needed to be considered in the methodology is, in order to really kind of pull together the reality TV for retirement, so to speak, we needed to make sure that the participants were able to connect not only on their laptop and PC, but also using, as I mentioned before, the customized mobile app. So if you can see on the left of your screen, there is the reality voice home screen. All of this was designed specific and custom to this project. What it did was really ensured convenience for the participants, making sure that it was easy for them to do, and also get real-time responses as they felt the need to respond. It was built obviously on mobile. And the primary issue here was to make sure that it was extremely user-friendly. Now Christine will tell you a little bit more about how it works on their end.
As you can see, itracks was the natural fit when we looked at what our needs were for our platform, and then being able to work with us and really make it our own and to customize, as you can see on our webpage, and creating our own custom app to do that. So how we made Reality Voice work for our clients, we would have our clients, whether they were internal or external, reach out to us and to let us know what their needs were and what their questions were. We collaborated on those and decided, what questions to pose for the week to our participants. The participants gave us their insights, and we get so much more from the video than just from the typed word, that it made a huge difference on the insights that were given to us by the questions. Once we did that, I went through all the video footage and created a report. Sometimes it could just have been a simple report that I put together myself, or even professional videos that you'll see here in just a few minutes. Once that video was produced, and then we shared it with our internal and external clients. And we do have an example of a video for you. What we did is provided an example of exploring our findings on health savings accounts. We all know they've been around for years, but we also know that there are still some people out there who do not know what they are or how to take full advantage of them. And we really love the insights that we gained from the videos that we had from our participants. It definitely changed perceptions for us, right? It enabled sales, marketing, and client teams to rethink how we position the HSAs. So we'll let you watch a couple of minutes of one of our videos.
Like I said before, I don't know what HSA stands for. I'm assuming housing, I don't know, standard analysis? I don't know. Personally, I never heard of it.
HSA, if I know what it is, I believe it stands for, it has to do with health service account.
I think it's some type of benefit.
HSA is considered a healthy insurance. HSA is a health savings account.
HSA is a health savings account.
Health savings account.
Health savings account.
HSA is a health spending account.
Okay, so HSA is a health spending account, and I don't have one.
So I don't know anything about them.
I really don't know what it is. To be honest with you, I don't. I'm sorry.
I've never used it. I've never thought of using it. So I don't know whether it be a positive thing or a negative thing, or am I missing out on something good?
This is an account that's used to pay your medical expenses.
It's basically given by your employer. They contribute a certain amount of money to that account.
I know that it is deducted out of your paycheck every 2 weeks, I guess.
I'm thinking that it's money that they take out of your check to put into a separate account to use for medical bills.
Usually people use them instead of a low deductible health insurance,
to help cover some of the expenses for a high deductible health insurance plan.
A health savings account is basically where you deduct a portion of your money from your paycheck tax-free to use for healthcare related expenses.
Basically the equivalent of a credit card or debit card, and you can use that card to pay for out-of-pocket medical expenses.
So of course, one of the main things of why we do certain things is we want to see the results. We want to make sure that what we're doing is making a difference. So some results that we have were amazing through what we were trying to do. One is we measured the interest through active sharing by our field teams. Every time we take this to our sales team, 80% of the time, it is a service that was wanted, which is an amazing percentage to have. Questions submitted, it's a very collaborative process. We're able to make the questions stronger, a very comprehensive platform. We were very pleased with the range of topics that we were able to provide. It wasn't simply, even though it was focused on retirement, we still wanted to look at the whole big picture of financial wellness. So we were able to ask, how is COVID affecting you? How is this affecting your retirement planning? Did you have an emergency savings in place? And we can talk more also about different topics that we threw out there. But it's amazing the insights that we were able to get through those. We were completely delighted with the platform, being able to adapt the tool to something different. And we're so thankful to our partner in itracks for being able to see our vision and help make that happen for us. So with a 95% delight with platform, that is amazing.
Thanks, Christine. That was a really good summary. I think you mentioned something about COVID-19 and the whole impact. We were surprisingly happy that we did not lose people. They remained engaged throughout. We made sure that they were still feeling comfortable as we collected the insights via video on a weekly fashion. So right through the COVID-19 shutdown, we were still able to get great insights from people. So now what's happened? We have a great platform. The Client Lab team is getting good information about retirement plans. So internal to the Client Lab team, there were some extraordinary testimonials that came as a result of this. So the client was able to provide retirement planning education during uncertain times. They're able to leverage the Reality Voice platform to actually facilitate a consent process and record testimonials. So let's talk about the testimonial platform for a couple of minutes, and I think Christine has something else to share. Prior to the COVID-19, testimonials were really generated in person, and with COVID-19, the whole in-person part of it obviously went away. So Client Lab looked for a way to actually execute the testimonial program without having to engage in in-person visits. So they said, well, maybe we could take what was been developed for Reality Voice and kind of migrate it over to include the testimonial program. So what you'll be seeing in a couple of minutes is that they were able to capture very uplifting stories from their clients, if you will, from the comfort of their own home. So being able to connect with them during COVID and not have any of the issues of being in person affect the data collection piece. There was no loss of productivity because the program and the platform was already set up. It was an easy migration to include testimonials in that process. They found through the course of the data collection for testimonials that they actually got more authentic responses. People went a little bit deeper, because they were able to speak to their camera and offer their opinions and their thoughts, they went a little bit deeper than if it had been conducted in person. And then, of course, because part of the ask here by Client Lab was to make sure that there's high quality video production and output. So there was indeed that high quality video that they could take and use for marketing assets as well as internal learning. So now Christine will give you a little bit of an understanding about the testimonial work.
So as Kathy just talked about, we all know when the COVID time hit, we were all in this new playing field, and it's almost like, what do we do now? Okay, we have this, we have these challenges. What do we do? Where do we go from here? And I will tell you that itracks went above and beyond. And we are amazingly appreciative and amazed at how quickly itracks was able to turn around our request and make it happen. And as you'll see, amazing results. Because of the itracks team and being able to respond very quickly, when I say we did it in a matter of weeks is really an understatement, because I think we literally turned this around in under 2 weeks to make this process what it needed to be to make it work. Dan, Garnett, and Kathy were just amazing at helping us to do that and to develop this tool that would address our current challenges. So like before, we used the base of Reality Voice, but turned it into how do we collect testimonials now from many different places around the country and without being there in person. And so using the Reality Voice platform and tweaking it just a little bit, we made it so that we could send out a link. Once we sent out that link, an electronic waiver was signed, and they created a login. There was an instruction screen to review, and once you did that, you went to a screen where you hit a button to record. From there, that was, and I literally tell people when I'm still working with these projects, it takes me longer to explain it than it actually takes to do the process. And as we know, working in the real world, making a simplified process is the key to everything. And itracks was definitely able to come through and be able to do that. As you're about to see, one of our testimonials about this COVID-19 time is an amazing testimonial of the work that was done during this time. And we are thankful to be able to share it with you.
I'm Jeffrey Mittman, President and CEO at Bosma Enterprises. Bosma Enterprises is the largest employer of people who are blind or visually impaired in the state of Indiana. Of my more than 200 employees, 55% are blind or visually impaired.
Jeff is a retired Master Sergeant, and he was leading the charge in multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he actually was driving a Humvee, lost his eyesight to an IED roadside bomb, and we were about a half an inch away from losing him completely. So we're very blessed to have Jeff through this wartime-like period of COVID-19.
When we were recently looking to transition our retirement plans to a new provider, the first criteria we set was to find somebody within the community who would work mutually with us. And when we selected Mass Mutual, we started working with Matt Hasbrook on the transition. And Matt was able to bring his entire team in prior to the transition.
We were able to meet with every single active participant that wanted to meet with us, which was about 93% of the participants. And each one of those people took some sort of action towards their retirement readiness. So it was a extremely successful outcome.
the dedication that they have to their company and to their cause was really the way we all should approach our days and our jobs, to really put our all into it, make sure that what we're doing is going to affect the greater good. And that truly is what they do as an organization every single day.
And here we are today in the middle of a pandemic. And it's here at Bosma Enterprises, those very employees that Matt and his team at Mass Mutual were serving, who are here today providing products to the Department of Veterans Affairs. I couldn't be prouder to be here today, to be part of the community, to work mutually with Mass Mutual and Matt and his team to provide those services to our employees who, as I speak right now, are down on the production line pushing products out to our nation's heroes, and doing it with the knowledge that Bosma and Mass Mutual is taking care of them and their families while they're taking care of the nation.
Well, thank you, Christine and Kathy, for an excellent display of qualitative research in today's day and age. You know, on occasion, I am afforded the opportunity to work with someone I would consider a research innovator. Christine, I can't thank you and your team enough in terms of your patience in working with us in developing the program and the project, allowing us to redesign some of our software pieces so they fit your project. It's just been an absolute pleasure to work with you and your team, and we really look forward to kind of pushing the envelope in terms of how our products and services are used in the future. So for the remainder of the discussion, I'm going to walk people through kind of their options when it comes to qualitative research and perhaps what might be your best approach going forward. When thinking about qualitative online, there's really two streams that you want to consider. One is real-time. I have a group of people, I've got them there at a certain time, and here's the questions that I want to ask them. And then, of course, one is the overtime one where that was just recently described as Christine and Kathy put you with, like a bulletin board focus group, that type of thing. Real time, usually used in cases where I have an answer I need you know, chosen right now. Maybe I'm doing a couple of different streams of advertising and I have to choose one piece of advertising over the other. This is a great application for doing it in that focus group in real time. This product has really taken off. It's primarily because it's kind of the go-to after, you know, all of these traditional focus groups have shut down. When doing real time, you really have two choices: text-based or video. Now, text-based is a really unique application, and it too has taken off. There's a number of times where you want to consider a text-based group. Perhaps you have a wider audience you want to reach. Maybe you want to get to a little larger group. This is an excellent option for a text-based group. And sometimes the topic is very sensitive. I mentioned before bankruptcy, maybe 401ks. That's where you know, your participants may feel more comfortable being anonymous, and then we can create you know, a username that's outside of their real name as part of that research. We often see the product used when we're researching in emerging markets. It's a very easy application. It's one where if there's low bandwidth in that market, it can be used and used efficiently. Teens and millennials tend to prefer this method. I have a daughter who's just 18 now, and she described to me, she said, "Dad, I would do this method, texting, but I wouldn't do this method," which is the one with the video. So that's a place to consider if you're looking to speak to that audience. And sometimes there's you know, a non-tech savvy crowd. Maybe perhaps when you're talking about the older age categories, this might be an excellent option for them, just a text-based group as opposed to getting their video camera started, the audio, and so on as well. When you need things turned around quickly, you fire up a group, find your people, and go that way. So, and as an example, below bankruptcy experiences, perhaps this is the method of choice. But we're also seeing a really big uptake in the video focus group application. What you're looking at now is our beta of our new focus group software that's coming out. Really innovative way to capture people's opinions all in real time. Great way to have yourself watch and observe those groups. It's all recorded. All of the individual videos are also recorded. So if you're thinking about building materials out of this, either for training or education internally, this is a great application or tool for capturing real-time video. So projects that fit when facial recognition is important and that real-time engagement is important. One-person interviews or group collaborations. That's again an excellent opportunity to use this product. We're seeing more demand for high-quality video because of things like using the materials for education, for further training. So the ability to capture those high-def videos is very important. And then very, very important is to having an interactive back room where you can sit as a client, watch what's going on, talk amongst your colleagues, and really immerse yourself in the market research. So some examples of cases where our real-time video is grouped: Chase credit cards, customers, credit card offerings. There were discussions about that. There's a Chase Marriott used us for website testing, MasterCards and ad campaign testing. And then JP Morgan interviews with business owners to collect feedback on loan forgiveness forms. So, just a couple of ideas of where that could be used. I'll go over the bulletin board briefly. This is a unique product, and sometimes you might want to consider this when you're doing in-home testing. How are people consuming your product in their home environment or maybe their office environment? But even more importantly, maybe some of that in bank testing or in office testing, where I'm going to the bank now. It's obviously changed and different. I come as a consumer. I say, I'm here as part of a research study. They've asked me to show how people are dealing with social distancing. I notice that all of the tellers are thankfully they're wearing their masks. Although I was concerned about coming to the bank, now that I see it, I'm more comfortable. And all of that can be captured on their mobile device and then come back to that form where you as the client and our researchers can go through that data and really look at the insights of what's coming back in that new experience in the bank. When to choose a discussion board, really think about it as Facebook for research. There's a lot of collaboration that can take place, discussion amongst participants. You really get the in-depth feedback in this environment where people can sit down and really think about their answers before just kind of pushing them out there. You may have some short-term projects or long-term communities. That's the beauty of this product is we often see it used over the course of 3 days, but we have projects that run, months on end, almost more like a diary type project that I know, although I don't go to the bank often, I do on occasion, and in those occasions, I'm going to be part of this research, and I'm going to talk to you about it when I get there. We can split people into subgroups, so you can have different territories, you can have different types of bankers, people or clients that are using your product, and then you can analyze that output in those subgroups. It's perfect for ethnographies, diary type studies, shop alongs or bank alongs. For instance, credit card studies. When are they using their credit cards and what cases and how they're using it? And of course, a great example of this was the Mass Mutual case study that you just observed. So just in kind of final wrap up, the key benefits of online qualitative research: quick turnaround. You're going to get this information quickly, which is all what we need right now. It allows you to observe remotely from your home, from your office. You don't need to travel to get this information. We're accessing the participants in their real or ideal environments. We're driving down the cost of doing this research. And quite frankly, doing some of our own research with participants, it is becoming the preferred method. The thought of having to go and sit around a table right now with masks, hand sanitizer, all of that, really clients are pushing back and saying, listen, look, I'll talk to you, but can I do it from my home? Can I do it in my own environment? And then we can continue to be innovative about what we're doing, our study designs. We can push the envelope of what we're gathering and how we're gathering it for you, the client. So final considerations, things you want to think about. You really want to talk to your research about the study design. Kathy is an excellent option for that. Just really think what you want to achieve and get through it. We can come up with some ideas about how that might happen. You're really going to want dedicated team members to lead the initiative, someone on your side that says, you know what, this is our objective, this is what we want to push. Someone like Christine that's going to say, you know, how can we meet these outcomes? We're going to have to think about the incentives and the recruitment process. How are we going to attract these people? How are we going to keep these people, depending on what we're doing? You're going to want to use a research-focused platform. I think there's been some delving into what I would consider conference software, often not necessarily meeting the needs of all the parties. If you're, you know, if you want to have that real client backroom experience, you're going to want to go with the research software that is built for research. And then finally, you know, really talk to the companies you're working with about security. We recognize that this is a major concern within your industry, and so our platforms and all of our structures and our processes are built around, you know, providing that level of security so that you can be comfortable in doing your research online. With that, I'm going to open the floor to questions. We look forward to answering any questions that you might have.
Great, thanks everyone, and for watching the webinar and sharing it. Now we have our panelists up for some questions. Thanks, we received a number of questions. Feel free to add additional questions into the chat area of the GoToWebinar panel. First one here, so I am impressed by the participant retention in your project. What were the key factors in achieving this retention rate?
I can take that to start with, Christine, throw in a few extra points if I missed something. I think the key was very carefully doing the recruit, not only making sure that people qualified to be part of it, but that they were interested, agreed to be part of the longer term, as we shared that this would be a long-term commitment for them. Albeit we got through the first month, as soon as they started getting their incentive check or through PayPal, you know, they were sure that they were going to get paid, but it became more than that. And I think it was the engaging questions that the Client Lab team shared with them on a weekly basis. It wasn't just some stupid throwaway question. It was really thought-provoking, and the participants were really engaged by that. So they were part of the research, and we were constantly in contact with them. It was not a one and done thing every week. You know, we reached out to them, we made sure they felt warm and, you know, part of the team. So that, I think, significantly helped, because we were amazed as well. You know, it was really about the strength of the great questions that were asked and that they felt appreciated, because it wasn't a great big deal incentive. They weren't making $100 a week. I want to say, Christine, I think we're at 50. Is that right?
Yeah, we didn't pay that much. Being a financial institution, we couldn't pay that much.
Right. You're right.
Can I make one other comment?
Yeah.
I think, Christine, I think it's one of the most important pieces of a good proper research process is you gave your participants feedback on how their answers are making a difference in that process, and that when people feel like they're being listened to, that's the key to great research. So anyway, that's just my own comment.
Yeah, well, I think too, another part, sorry, Garnett, is that you have to make the questions very conversational. So I didn't come into the space and come off as some expert and I know everything. You know, it was very everyday conversational language that I spoke with the participants, no matter what level they were on, because we had a range, right, from, you know, a 21-year-old just starting out to someone who was about to retire and planning for their retirement. So I had to account for all those age ranges and job titles of, you know, someone working for Uber versus somebody who has a 2-lawyer family, you know, so doing that and just the way you word certain things is very important too. And itracks did an amazing job of recruiting, and we put very, very strenuous recruiting requirements, especially the technology piece. It was huge and not everybody could do it. And really, we could have almost said we had 100% retention rate if it wasn't for the technology factors, because we had to actually say, I'm sorry, it's just not working, because if we can't use your video feed, then, you know, we can't continue. So sorry, Garnett, what were you about to say?
Oh, I was going to say that Christine really emulated the great project management skills and that consistent engagement. She never missed a week. She was always very engaged, which helped to create that momentum, and that's why we see such a great engagement in the platform. All right, a number of other questions. There's a question here. Maybe we'll stick with participant types of questions. So, did the participants interact with one another?
They did not. We did not want it. We wanted to be closed because we wanted very real and authentic feedback, and it not to be swayed or, you know, taking ideas from somebody else. We really wanted to know. And a lot of the questions we were like, please do not research this. If you don't know, tell me you don't know. Because knowing that was just as important as somebody trying to give us an answer. We wanted that authentic result of, you know what, I really don't know. So it was very important.
Great. All right. And in the Reality Voice case study, who is coming up with the questions? Was it the Mass Mutual research team, other employees? How was the flow of questions controlled?
So it was a combination. We had outside clients. One was they wanted to know what their, you know, what the understanding was of annuities. You know, it's a topic that's kind of, you either really know or you really don't. It could come in from our internal team, right? Well, what do we think about HSAs, or what do we think about, how is this affecting their saving right now with this COVID, right? Did people stop saving? Did they continue saving? Did they start saving less or more? And we found out some pretty interesting comments from the group. So it was very, very insightful. And then some weeks I didn't have any, you got me coming up with, you know, some questions of just to keep them engaged. And what's nice too is some weeks we just did fun questions like, what 4th of July traditions do you have? Or what are you going to be doing for Halloween? And in this COVID time, what are you going to be doing this weekend? You know, and there was a mix of that to keep it more, you know, authentic and on a level of being conversational. It wasn't always these high level topics. It was a mix.
Great. All right. There's a few questions regarding the privacy aspect, and especially with some of the videos being shared with sales teams members, and then with more public sharing, and especially going into the testimonial, the new testimonial project that was replacing the in-person testimonial program. And so I can speak to that because I was fairly involved in that process. So with the standard templates within the software has the more research-focused consent templates where participants, when they register, there's an informed consent process that they would go through. This was a very unique project, as you can see, in that some of the content was shared beyond. So there was a different participant recruitment and consent process. And with that, they were signing a consent, and the team was very transparent up front that there was going to be sharing of this, and there was an agreement. It was actually modeled after the the in-person testimonial aspect from MassMutual, and so the participants were aware of the process and the intent of the project, and there was agreement. And to formalize it, we also used a online signing process so that there were signatures, and we wanted to make sure that they had an understanding of that. Anyone else want to jump in on this one?
All right.
Okay.
Well, and I think too, we had to have two different ones for the testimonial versus the reality voice. Is that what you were getting at, Kathy? Yeah. So, you know, with the reality voice, we made it very clear what our intentions were of how we wanted to use it. And Garnett was wonderful at helping us figure that part out. I mean, sometimes I'm sure Kathy and Garnett were like, oh, fun, another change. But we wanted to be very transparent with our participants of how we wanted to use this. And it wasn't just an all-out public facing, but we did want to use it, right, with our clients. And it's not something that we just stuck on our website at that point. Not that that's something we couldn't have grown to. But for the testimonials, we also made that a completely different process, because we did say we can use these publicly. And you know, when people want to share their story, like in the BOSMA, that was like this most heartfelt story ever. It was amazing to come up with that. You know, they're very aware of what we were using it for, and they asked for the ability to also use the video themselves. So it was, you know, a win for everyone, and it was an awesome process, and huge to itracks legal team and Kathy and Dan and Garnett for working with us and making sure we had, right, all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed, because we needed to be very careful about that.
Mm-hmm. All right, how long does it usually take to set up a project?
You want me to take that?
Sure, go ahead, Dan.
Often it'll have to do with the scope of the project. Most of the research that we do isn't exactly like what Christine and her crew are doing. Often, you know, for instance, using the bulletin board, it's usually a 3-day research process if you're doing real-time groups. Sometimes you'll be doing 2 groups to research perhaps some advertising. So usually what happens is you meet with someone from our team, usually with the research side of things. And in that case, we'll talk about the scope of the project. We'll talk about the recruiting and what that might require. Usually a typical recruit will take, you know, 7 to 10 days, assuming that it's you know, not necessarily gen pop, but that's usually what it would take. Then you conduct your research. And then after that, it's handed off, and those that are involved in reviewing those materials, you know, they may take a week themselves to generate the report. So I would say a typical project would take that 3 week to a month window. Kathy, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I think you're right. It really depends upon the scope of the project. Some of our clients come in and they're very self-sufficient. They know what they need to do. They have a moderator, they're recruiting, or they have a recruiter. So the technology part of it is compressed, because all we're doing is satisfying that technology need. If it's a more full service project, then yeah, 3 to 4 weeks is a good timeline.
What was the process for recruiting participants for the Reality Voice project?
Kathy, do you want to approach that?
Yeah, it basically, there were multiple scope calls with the client lab team to make sure that we understood exactly who they were looking for, making sure that we had all of the respondent qualifiers. We went through, do we make this a blinded study? Is it going to be an identified study? Do we want only clients who use the MassMutual retirement fund? Do we want a cross section of people that have a retirement plan? So it really was a matter of starting broadly. What were the objectives? What did we want to understand? What was the lead that Client Lab gave to us in terms of who would be a good respondent for them? And then determining, is it blind or isn't it? And once we made that determination, then we did not and correct me if I'm wrong, because this was almost 2 years ago, but Christine, if I'm off base on this, we did not target Mass Mutual customers. We just went for people who had a retirement fund, who really had that fund serviced by any financial institution. And there, obviously, we collected that information, but who they worked for, who they were a customer of, was not a qualifier. They had to have a retirement plan. And then making sure.
We wanted a range, so we didn't want them all from like one, but correct. And we wanted to stay blind because we didn't want it to influence what they were saying.
Right.
So they didn't know we were Mass Mutual. And, you know, we wanted that range. Absolutely. Of different, because we wanted that valued opinion of what's working for you, what's not working for you, what's missing, what, you know, all those different things. We didn't want just one company, right, or one set. So we got it really good, and we had a lot of soft quotas in there too.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Oh, we're just running to the end. There are some questions that we weren't able to answer. There's one more that I really wanted to pull in, and then I think we're going to have to sign off. So last question here. The Reality Voice program appears to have strong uptake from various departments of Mass Mutual, including the field team. How did you achieve high level of usage and delight with the platform outside of the program managers?
You know, Reality Voice really sold itself. You know, it was just with the amazing look of the platform, how we specialized it and customized it. And we really didn't have to do much more except get in front and present it. I mean, the minute we took it out to the sales team, it was like, okay, I can use it here, I can use it there, I can use it here. Here's some examples, let me get it here. And at some points we were just like, okay, we'll take this first, then we'll move to here. But, you know, with the robustness of the system and being able to do and showing what it could do, it really sold itself internally. There wasn't much that we had to do to get people to be excited about it.
And I'd like to jump in here as well. I remember the very first time that the Mass Mutual team, so Christina Speck, Kathy Ray, and Christine Keller had a call with us, and they had so much passion and they had such a clear vision, even back a couple of years ago, about the potential of the platform. And at the time I was thinking, wow, they have a lot of aspirations, but they delivered it, they executed it, and they made it happen. And so I think that it was really that initial vision was to have a very well-used platform that had a strong return on investment, which made it highly used. And a lot of the customizations they made was to make it very convenient for the other users and appropriate for the other team members within their other departments and user groups within the organization. Great. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us. It was a fantastic session. Thank you so much, Christine, Kathy, and Dan, for sharing your ideas, thoughts, and this really fun project. I just want a couple notes. We do have a couple more webinars coming up in November. We have a healthcare and pharmaceutical industry insights webinar that I'll be presenting with. And then we also, later in the month, there is the Research in Virtual World webinar, tips to maximize the quality of insights in your online research project. So feel free to sign up for those at content.itracks.com/fall-webinars. Thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. We will send out a link to the recording. We had lots of requests, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and we can follow up. Bye.
Thanks everyone.